Hi guys, welcome to a series of short videos that will discuss the differences and the implementation and how we as coaches, players, and performance staff can better understand the constructs that define learning and the constructs that define performance. In this first episode, we're just going to focus on understanding the differences, understanding how they relate to each other, and understand how we can optimize each environment. To do so, we first have to understand how they are defined. So learning is defined as the relative permanent change in performance, whereas performance is the temporary change in observable behavior. I like to think of this as classroom versus the exam. So learning usually takes place in the classroom, and what it does is it employs, or it allows the learner to develop the skills that will be needed over time. However, performance is the temporary change in observable behavior. So what that means is performance can be observed in training sessions, and it can be observed in the game. However, we can't always correlate performance to learning. To understand what that means, we have to understand what a learned behavior is. So there's four main characteristics that a learned behavior might present, and one is that it persists over time. What this means is that if I was to train a skill, for example, in a game of football, I was to train passing in week 1, I should be able to show that I've learned those skills. I should be able to reapply those skills without needing to revise the content, so to speak, after a period of time. Secondly, learned behavior is adaptable. What this means is once you learn a skill, you know when to correctly apply it and how your behavior needs to change for that skill to be effectively utilized within the adaptive system that you're in. Thirdly, a learned behavior requires little attention. We reach a level of autonomy when we are really, really skilled, and that means that we can continuously perform that behavior while juggling other tasks. So for example, if we continue with the passing example in football, someone who's very good at passing, or someone who's learnt various ways to pass, can still scan the pitch, can still make high-level decisions without having to focus too much on how they're going to pass the ball. And lastly, learned behaviors are robust under stress. We as competitors, we are surrounded in varying levels of stressful environments, and usually training doesn't meet the same emotional load, the stressing load, as competition does. Therefore, it is really important that we can still produce the same skills that we are doing in training in this safer environment, in that competitive environment that really makes a difference. We tend to look at learning and performance as two separate zones, adjacent to each other, and that inform each other. Most of it seems very self-explanatory in terms of the goals and the activities and the focus. However, something I really want to understand and I really want to dive into is that in the learning zone, that mistakes are to be expected, because we should be trying new things, we should be pushing our limits and stretching our understanding. Whereas in our performance zone, we try to minimize as many mistakes because we're playing for a result, we're playing for the consequence. And lastly, the benefit is for growth and future performance. And then the performance zone all focuses about, can we win right now in this moment? When applying the school of thought, we typically follow this sort of cyclical relationship where we spend time in the learning zone, and then we apply what our learnings are into our performance zone, and then following that, we review, we reflect on our performance to identify mistakes, identify strengths, identify opportunities and threats, and then we adapt our learning intentions accordingly. A caveat that I have when looking at this relationship is that sometimes as coaches or as educators, we can always look at a training session and be like, oh, everyone played really, really well, and so that means there's a lot of learning. I think that is fundamentally incorrect, and the truth is the same for the inverse. So if someone performed badly, they didn't learn. I think when using performance metrics in the learning zone, there's too much variability to incur whether good performance or bad performance has a linear relationship with the amount of learning. Something that happens to us as humans as we decide to learn skills is we feel the effect of stagnation or plateau of our skills. In theory, a lot of people view the human body to have a linear relationship with time and performance. So if we follow this blue line here, many people think if we were to put more time into something, we would get better at the same rate. So for example, if someone took 100 games to go from silver to gold, they will take another 100 games to go from gold to plat, so on and so forth. And in over the 500 games, they should hit master, because they should always be climbing. Now, what technically happens is that we feel the effect of arrested development. What this means is that at a certain point, we stop getting performance gains to the same level. They start minimizing, and we stagnate. So if we follow this dotted line, the gap between what are predicted learning rates and the actual learning rates can be fixed if we implement principles of deliberate practice. However, another reason why we can see this stagnation effect, this plateau effect happen, is when people get a couple years into their job, or they get to a certain level of expertise, they start believing they're good enough. What this means is, if we look at ourselves as seeds, when we first plant our seeds, when we start first play the game, we need to water it, we do a lot of learning, and then let's say players climb to masters, they climb to GM, and then all they're thinking about is, how can I be the best today? What they end up doing is they only spend time in that performance zone. So they stop taking in and utilizing chances to develop learning it better. What this means is they sometimes don't reach their full potential. The largest caveat when it comes to learning is the currency that you require is time. You plant the seeds today and you harvest the rewards at a later date. Some of the biggest challenges that stand in the way is, how do we spend our time in intentional, purposeful, and meaningful practice environments and learning environments? And how do we then measure how much of that learning transfers across into our performance zone? I believe that to effectively address the situation, we can't have learning and performance zones in two separate, adjacent fields. I believe that there is an overlap between learning and performance. Although we're not going to dive into it in this video, and we're going to talk about it in future videos, I really wanted to present the idea of representative learning design. I believe if we understand, apply, and monitor the principles of representative learning design, we can effectively create safe spaces that allow learning and performance to interact more effectively, and also lead to higher and more effective methods of learning, development, and transfer for our athletes. That's all for today's kind of short presentation. There'll be more videos coming out, hopefully every week. If there's topics that you're always interested in, please by all means reach out to me on Twitter or Discord. And I hope to see you guys next time.